Thanks everybody for joining us. This is Doug McCarthy from Team Kane, and we have Elizabeth Schrieffer with us as well. Today our webinar is Upgrade Training Solutions Your Team Will Love. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm Doug McCarthy. Elizabeth, I'll hand it over to you if you want to introduce yourself.
Perfect. My name is Elizabeth Schrieffer, and I'm a president and a trainer here at iLearnERP. We've been teaching J.D. Edwards for many, many years, personally since 2001, and I've been in this market for my entire career.
Very nice. Well, I've got 3 years of experience with Team Kane. Prior to that, 17 years of being on the corporate IT side, supporting JDE in many different fashions. So who is Team Kane? For those of you that may be new to us, we've been a JDE partner since 1995. Our primary business is around JD Edwards consulting. We don't deal with any other ERP packages, just JD Edwards, so upgrades, migrations, things along those lines. We do partner with a few different people where we think they have a best-of-breed tool listed along the bottom there. Global Software, Purgit, DWS, Forza for their ScanMan, and Pacman, SSPR, and RF Smart in the warehouse management side of things was really where Team Kane started. A few of the top projects that we have going on, of course, lots of people upgrading 9.2 these days. A lot of people are looking for help and looking how they're using JD Edwards and how they might be able to better use the new functionality. We'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. BI Publisher, big piece of what we've been doing lately, helping get people off of other third-party tools. So enough about us. Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. At iLearn, we primarily focus on the learner and the user of any technology tool within the Oracle suite. So our JDE training solutions include custom end users, so any of the mobile applications through a full implementation of JD Edwards, as well as what we're going to focus on today is our upgrade solutions, including our E1 Academy. The E1 Academies are online JDE University. We've been partnered with Team Kane for some time using that in some various situations. The E1 Academy is a completely online library of JD Edwards learning. So it enables folks to stop and start and brush up their skills at any point in their JD Edwards career. I'll take the agenda here. We're going to do a little quiz here in just a second, talk a little bit about learning, see if we can get a little feedback and have a little fun with that. And then we're going to dive into e-learning and how that plays into the JD Edwards upgrade. So we're going to talk about traditional versus e-learning. Both are very much still applicable for many, many audiences. So we're going to talk about how those fit into the upgrade curriculums. We'll talk about 9.2 content specifically, as Doug just mentioned, the UDOs being the primary focus for many, many folks right now. So we do train around that. We'll talk about how you move through the life cycle of an upgrade and train, as well as some of our customer success stories. We'll also go through, and Doug will take us through this piece of planning the best route for how you get up to the latest releases of 9.2 and get ready for those feature packs as they're about to come out. And Alana has us ready with a Valentine's. We're using a Valentine theme today. A little bit late, but we want to show our love for the upgrade, as that's kind of the main action right now for everyone. So a little quiz here for you. When you're thinking about your own training and your own educational experience, which of the following would apply to you? And this one's just on the screen so you can take note, and we'll recap these answers in just a second. So I set goals and maintain self-motivation, hard for all of us, maybe. I ask insightful questions. I think that's a given in the JD Edwards community. We have so many smart folks out there lobbing those at us. I tend to revisit material to master the content. I combine my life, work, and educational experiences every day on number D there. E, I can adapt to constant change. F, I am an information maniac. G, I take advantage of tracking and reporting when it's available to me. H, all of the above, and I, none of the above. Just before I go to the answers there, as folks come up with their own opinion of themselves in this situation, we are noticing that more and more the ability to not just learn a new feature, but adapt to how your organization is going to use that feature and adopt that new business process, letter E there, adapting to that constant change, becoming as important as somebody's ability to actually receive that information. So times are certainly changing. If you answered anything with an A through a G, you're making some great strides towards becoming a master learner. We do work with our E1 Academy learners on how best to learn leveraging e-learning content as well as just online content in general. There is so much out there, both from vendors, public information, Oracle, etc. So that's one of the things we're happy to help with in any situation. If you answered 8, you're a master learner and the student has become the teacher. Every situation, particularly with the complexity of your ERP, lends itself for folks sharing information, and that's really when everybody grows. If you answered with an I, not to worry. If you're determined to learn, no one can stop you. If you are struggling on the learning front in any way, shape, or form, there's always ways to jumpstart that, ways to allocate more time to it and to partner with other mentors and things. So never fear, you can make it. There's always something exciting to learn. So as we look at how learning's changed a little bit in the online E1 Academy University, we would have to address the issue between training as a traditional method and versus e-learning. I'd venture to say that as we approach the next few years, e-learning and online learning will become the primary method and will be considered the traditional methods on down the road. So it's just a matter of time. But traditional techniques really do include your stand-up classes where one person goes to an event, having an instructor, whether from your own organization or an external organization, deliver a workshop, doing on-the-job training, that shoulder-to-shoulder method of somebody shadowing someone or just sitting and practicing in front of someone. Those are some very, very common traditional methods, and they have a significant place in our marketplace. People learn very much from informal learning, as some of these are called, and they learn from classes. Classes are still one of the higher ranked efforts around training because people have to focus in a workshop. They're locked in a room. They have materials. They have objectives. They have a cohort of people moving through the same concept with them. So also still a very, very plausible solution. The reason e-learning comes in and makes such a splash these days in the communities, both in software training, soft skills, every type of workshop has been kind of made into an online university, and that is because of the cost effectiveness of the training and the flexibility with which the learner can consume the information. At iLearn, we really like to focus on that flexibility for the learner. We want someone to have that ability to be taking an AP course and be able to navigate their way over to learn about a requisition or a purchase order and dive deeper at the places where they're curious. Knowledge really does come much easier when someone either has a need or a driving curiosity around it. Sometimes our job gives us to that very easily, and sometimes it is our own natural curiosity. Some of the other things that come into play for e-learning provides a great ROI on your investment. It tends to be less expensive. You tend to be able to send anywhere from 1 to 100 people at a time. They can consume that learning on or off the job via mobile apps, tablets, their home computers, etc. So it really opens up a lot of freedom with that. And it also can promote the sharing of information in a very new way for many companies through internal chats, wikis, and things like that. So that online learning then promotes that online collaboration. So there's a lot of advantages that can come with taking on an e-learning approach. And for some customers who are working with a global team across multiple time zones, e-learning may be one of the only options available within their budget. Regardless of whether you take on traditional learning or e-learning, we want to make sure that we embody the whole experience for the learner. I'm not going to read many of these bubbles here, but that includes, not just their knowledge and skills around a particular topic, but includes their attitude, the environment in which they're learning. That could be how well a video plays, whether they can access it on their phone, those sorts of things. And then the learning aids that enable them to go perform those tasks or to leverage those skills out in their day-to-day world. So regardless of which method you end up picking for certain missions, you want to make sure that it's embodying a full experience for that learner. We use that science to drive our J.D. Edwards Academy. Our J.D. Edwards Academy is going to be pushing 5 years very soon, so that's an exciting milestone for us. That online university that we leverage or that we use is extremely customizable. And so what we do with our content on our E1 Academy is we personalize a learning experience for an end user or a CNC, a business analyst, etc. Just their sheer job role drives what content should be available and should be encouraged for that particular learner. In addition to just personalizing that experience, though, we allow them access to content well outside of what might be what we would consider to be their scope, and particularly what their manager often considers to be their scope. It's a blended approach using documentation, CBT type tutorials, as well as video-based learning. We span all of the modules from distribution, HCM, finance, and manufacturing. We have tutorials on how to make UPKs. We have CNC, so you can get going in the technical area. We include OVR, and you'll see on our upcoming list, specifically pertinent to upgrade training, we have the UDOs, along with the curriculum surrounding citizen developer. So the pieces that make up the Academy, there's over 700 plus courses now. Just a couple of quick features. It is mobile friendly. You can use it on a browser, on a mobile phone. We also have an app where you can launch all of the courses, and those get recorded to your credit. We have learning paths that include quizzes, or you can test your knowledge. Those quizzes are aligned with the Oracle certification exam. So regardless of whether you're going to become a J.D. Edwards certified specialist, you can certainly be taking the same curriculum and validating your knowledge against those quizzes for your own understanding. We have learning advisors who walk with folks along their journey to make sure that they are getting the content that they need, that they are finding the resources that they need for their job, and they know what the best next step is for them. And of course, we wouldn't be in the modern e-learning land if we didn't track it all. So we can report back in dashboard format and written format exactly who has taken what and give them due dates and all that kind of fun thing. In the E1 Academy, here's those quick learning aids and a little bit of a summary slide for you, but we do include the implementation guides as well as practice activities in a live environment. So it is very, very difficult to learn a skill off of just watching a video. So again, a blended learning, a holistic approach includes taking on an activity both in a CBT, computer-based training type environment, as well as popping into a live environment, either yours or ours, so that you can practice those individual skills. I think that's one thing that we have the hardest time kind of enforcing with our learners, or reinforcing with them, is that they do have to go out and practice. You can certainly get a concept, but as most of us who have been around for a while know, until you actually do it, it's not always quite stuck in your mind. Here's a few of those benefits of the E1 Academy summed up. We do have built-in evaluation tools. We manage the size of a particular piece of content. It is not necessarily microlearning, and in most cases is not. Little term there, micro, is exactly what it says. It's a very, very small chunk of learning. We do go for short, so we're looking, at maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute video. Micro would be considered a 2 or 3 minute video, and we have a few of those mixed in. So we do look at the amount of time spent on each application, so that folks can go in, consume the piece that they need that day, and keep on moving through their day with their job. It very much fits a virtual office space, as well as folks who sit at a cube. You can throw on a headset and consume this learning at any point in your day. One of the things we like to talk about in regards to the E1 Academy is the choice that's promoted within the curriculum. While we design custom curriculums for every learner that comes into the Academy, and of course we have templates for that, so when folks say, hey, what would a planner take? We can answer that with, hey, let's get them started with some basics in the inventory and PDM areas and then move them into MRP and then ask them questions as to how much forecasting and things like that they need. But a learner is really driven by how much choice they have and how they consume information. So we try and make sure that although we guide them down a certain path, that we provide them with access to additional content, those practice activities, that they can consume content via video, via CBT, etc. So the choice really drives motivation for a learner. So we like to encourage all of our customers to make sure that we leave as much of that choice open to our audiences that are out there. When somebody comes into the Academy, it's really important to understand that we are with them all the way. This is very different from what you would consider just buying a subscription to an online tool where you're kind of on your own to find what you're looking for. We spend time looking at the person's current understanding, so their baseline knowledge, what their objectives are, where they need to be, and get the delta of that so we can bring them up to speed as quickly as possible. That learning advisor then can provide reporting and progress type information, as well as continue to customize that along their learning path. So there's a lot of upfront work with the individuals as well as the entire customer base so that they have personalized learning experiences. And we find that although they might be taking a few less videos than if we had assigned in big bulks, their learning efficiency goes up exponentially. So specifically talking about what's in our 9.2 course content, Doug mentioned the UDOs a few minutes ago. Our citizen developer content is really getting to be one of the most popular curriculums that folks are looking to right now. Our experienced JD Edwards community is moving to the 9.2 releases. Folks are getting code current and looking forward to learning these new features, adopting the feature packs, and really applying those to their business so they can get some solid ROI out of JD Edwards. JD Edwards' new features. So you'll see down there at the bottom half is the citizen developer list. That's kind of a brief list. That's not every video that's in that curriculum, but it gives you an idea of at the top half there, you learn to navigate, you get the basics under control. And then with the citizen developer, we have the different components ready for folks to consume based on which ones are applicable at their own organization. We also have, managing those UDOs via the web with the user community. So if that is part of your job role, we do include the management through the web OMW as well as just some basic management type circumstances of the UDOs that are implemented at your organization. What's not on this list is one of our newest video curriculums that's coming out, and that is how to combo the UDOs into a set of features to make a particular job role more efficient. So we're exploring some business case scenarios in these videos where we combo different UDOs so that folks can see how you can build them together to accomplish business results. So it might not be an exact match, but it gives you that idea of how to take these UDOs as a toolbox type approach, put them together, and bring them out into the community. That upgrade lifecycle is becoming a lot more continuous, so I'll have a different slide here in addition to this one, but the upgrade lifecycle is very similar to the implementation lifecycle in the sense that you still work the training and learning and adoption components in a similar fashion, albeit at a much lighter level than you would in a new install, but you still work some of those same components, moving through, getting, ownership and buy-in at the beginning, figuring out the business case and the ROI around some of these new features, identifying the type of learning that you want to deliver. Again, traditional versus e-learning completely being an option there, and then moving through your go live. One of the places that the E1 Academy fits, and it fits quite a few across the board here, is up there in that phase one. Having the ability to access all of the UDOs, having the ability to access new features, how JD Edwards handles different things where someone might be able to drop a customization or enhance their own user experience, using a system such as an e-learning tool to get that buy-in and to educate the community on what they could be doing with the tool is a great way to gain excitement, and also to get a higher ROI, because that upfront education enables and empowers that BA community, that project team community, in order to implement these types of features. So that life cycle looks very, very familiar. With our project lifecycle, as we move through this with our customers, we are expanding and contracting curriculums based on audiences. So we really work very, very close with the project team and with individual learners to make sure that they're getting that right feature and right amount of content at the appropriate time throughout that life cycle. The model expands and contracts pretty easily, again, because of all those cool e-learning features. You know, it's easily deployable. We can track content. We can assign personally. So those features that make e-learning such a great way to deliver content right now make it a great part of an upgrade curriculum. So one of the questions I get asked most often these days is, how much upgrading training should people really invest in? You know, what do you do as far as upgrade training? And the answer, like almost everything else in both J.D. Edwards and in life, is that the answer does somewhat depend. A lot depends on who we're talking about your audience are going to be and what type of upgrade you're doing. So let me address both of those concepts. From the learning audience standpoint, and I've been using these buckets for a long time, and they vary a little bit client to client, but most people fit somewhere in these. The blue boxes there are executives, our PMO, and our casual users are our lightest users in the system. They need to understand what's changing, how it will impact them, and more importantly, what things will impact the organization. What improvements are we making? Where are we going to see ROI? And what might even be the complaints that are out there based on, you know, some of the changes. So we very much want to make sure that we don't lose track of those folks in our learning curriculums, but they are certainly a lighter piece. The folks running there in green are certainly our heavier folks. Our core team and our subject matter experts, our champions out in the business, are our heavy users. There are heavy folks who we need to make sure they understand the UDOs, they understand how to manage them, they understand those impacts. And of course, our end users, we want to make sure their transition to any new feature goes smoothly, that they're actually gaining efficiencies through the process, and that they can become champions of the actual solution. Get the slide to build here for us. So one of the things we put together for how to know how much, right? The audience is, the who is certainly one component of that. But another piece to that is what type of upgrade you are doing. And so I have going across the bottom, and Doug talks about this here in a couple of slides from now. He's going to go deeper into the types of upgrades. But you have where you kind of go like for like. You're getting your technical upgrade done. You have the upgrade type that's an optimization type situation, whether we're optimizing you know, a particular division or a particular business process, or maybe just across the board for the organization. So there's levels there. And then we have folks who are putting in new applications. It of course matters, and for those of us who have been in J.D. Edwards for a long time, we know that it's a big difference whether you're going from World or 810, even XC could have been in there, 812, etc., on up to 9.2. So where you fit on that continuum makes a difference for how you kind of move through there. That's my training curve kind of moving across, slicing the image here, saying, you know, if you're going from World up to 9.2, you know, that continues up, the amount of training continues up this curve as you figure out what the delta of that change can be. Factors that add to that are your cultural impacts and how much digital transformation you're trying to move to. So if you say you're moving to a bunch of mobile apps, we're adding some IoT, you know, those kinds of things can play into this as well. And so those digital transformation components may up the bar a little bit and increase the need for that amount of training and learning design component. And having a learning culture might push that down. You have a very self-serving learning culture might mean that you need less. So these are the kinds of things we look at as we figure out how much training makes sense for a different culture or an individual. Continual release does this little loop-de-loop across the top. So once you get up to the top and you're looking at those feature packs, it kind of moves in these cycles, right? So it depends on what you're accomplishing with those, why you're bringing that particular feature in, how many people, etc. So continual release is going to slice across the type there, and I'm moving into some new examples for that as well as we see those pieces start to come into play. So I wanted to pause for a second. I'm going to jump out to the actual curriculum, but I wanted to see while I navigated out there if anyone had any questions, or Doug or Lisa, you had anything to contribute.
Yeah, so one question that popped up around UDOs and security, and just how, if you could just talk to that a little bit, of if you cover UDO security, I guess.
UDO security. Yeah, hopefully I answer this as the slant of that question. But UDO security goes for us into that management. So we actually have a workshop around it's general creation and management of those UDOs and how they are deployed out to the user community, who gets them and who's impacted by them. And then we also have a workshop on the OMW management of the UDOs. So security would play into that as well. So yes, the management of the UDO is a big piece, and has been. You know, some of these UDOs, things that are classified as UDOs, have been around for a while. They're just now reclassified as UDOs. So there's some knowledge that we can leverage on that front, but there's some very new management features, and we do cover all of those both in video and in live workshop.
Great, thanks. If that sounds like answered the question. If anybody else has a question or you want to follow up on that, please just go ahead and put it back into the question box in the control panel.
Yeah, perfect. And if we can share some of the content around that as well, if there's more questions on that topic. Cool. Okay, so I just wanted to show very briefly the E1 Academy, so that it doesn't sound like it's vaporware. We had a few little tiny screenshots mixed in some of those slides, but this is the E1 Academy. It is a cloud-based solution, so it is a learning management system hosted in the cloud that we have populated and built around J.D. Edwards Enterprise One. So we have content rolling from 9.1 through 9.2. Again, our most popular content right now is certainly around the citizen developer and the UDOs out there. So when you are onboarded into the E1 Academy, you're going to be given some learning paths. And I actually logged in as myself today because I have a little bit more. I have a very long to-do list, as you can see there, with 58 courses to do. But just so you can see some action going on in here. How the E1 Academy works when a person comes on board is we do that customization of their learning curriculum with you individually. Now, granted, we can do it via email and pass back some spreadsheets and all that kind of good stuff. But we prefer to work directly with the individuals and managers who are going to be participating in creating a learning program. So we'll make a learning curriculum for that person, and it will come into their homepage like I have here, and I'll have learning paths assigned to me. Once I start those, I can access them from my In Progress tab, and if the customer, client, manager so chooses, we can put deadlines to those as well and have them go into overdue statuses. Mine don't actually have deadlines on them right now. Additionally, when you're in the Academy, we have some availability of some webinars and some news that you can see over on the right side. The news is one of the places where we share new curriculum that we deploy, and then we also share that periodically via newsletter format. Out here on the course library tab, this is where it really starts to get big, because, you know, sharing learning around an ERP is just a voluminous effort. There's lots and lots of modules. Technical, functional, learning design, you know, all sorts of things that are out there, and they all sort of weave together. So we've built our library around the application and verticals that exist within J.D. Edwards, and then we separate technical out, and then we have navigation, fundamentals, and our citizen developers curriculum. So if I were starting as a new learner, I would come into not that learning path, I would come into either my learning paths or my popular categories, and I would go to content that was either assigned to me, or I could use the search bar in the categories to go locate content that was relevant to what I was working on. And that's where it becomes a little bit of a learner choice. I can certainly go through the curriculum assigned, which most do. We're pretty trained that way from kindergarten. But then as they get more comfortable in e-learning, they start to use the search to say, hey, what if I wanted to check something out in warehousing? You know, what does that look like? What types of topics are out there? What if I wanted to figure out whether I could create, you know, a change in my configuration that would benefit my organization? So people also use it very much to grow in their J.D. Edwards understanding of applications, to see how other applications might benefit their organization. We still see quite a bit of folks who say, hey, we owned like a transportation or a warehouse. We owned that application, we just never put it in, and now we're thinking about doing that. So that's a great way to leverage an online curriculum. We've also taken the time for those that are longtime J.D. Edwards folks and done things around new application areas, things like fulfillment. So, you know, hey, you know, we were installed, you know, way back in XE or in, you know, 810 or something, and now we want to check out, you know, some of these new features. So we have curriculums that can only bring you the new features, and then we have things written specifically for if folks are coming to World and going from the World to the E1 type curriculum. So we can move through these courses, we can take those, once we achieve content, we can come over to the achievements page and I'll be able to see the workshops that I've consumed, as well as, you know, how I stand up against some other folks. I'm not going to make the platform here. I've taken a total of 3 classes because I never seem to finish them. But you'll see we have some folks out there who have taken quite a few classes, earned quite a few badges, and have a good time with seeing their scores come out there. So the other piece that is available, and your learning advisor is available via email through here, as well as through regular Outlook email. And so at any time, if a learner has a question around what they're consuming, whether it was a good match for what they were looking for, or if they need some additional content, those learning advisors are available to jump in and make sure that folks are ready to go. Doug, if there's not any other questions on there, I'm going to jump back and keep going with our presentation.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, so you're good to go.
Awesome. And where we were successful in rolling out these varied audience solutions. So, you know, it was hard to pick just 3, which is what I was supposed to say to you, but I wanted to pick just a couple to show kind of the blend. These aren't specifically necessarily to all E1 Academy, but around the whole upgrade curriculum concept. So with JFSHA, these folks came in and they actually took a full curriculum inside of the E1 Academy for a move from 9.0 to 9.2. What they learned along their way of educating the core team was that, hey, there was a lot of people, really new ones, no new business processes, but they were going to roll out some new features, some pages, some things like that. So they decided to use the opportunity for the upgrade and what they learned, you know, in their core team curriculum from the E1 Academy to go as practices for these folks, some new navigational skills that they didn't think their folks had, as well as some new features with it. We also worked with them to incorporate video into their learning. So, well, I don't have the statistics on the slides here for us. If you're interested in them, folks are watching an insane amount of video on a daily basis. The average person is watching, you know, at least a handful a day, and in certain age groups, folks are watching video more than television realm. So the way we consume information has certainly changed, and so it's time for us to move our own content into that. So we were able to leverage that for these guys. So just as a quick recap, they used the E1 Academy to clarify which features they wanted to put in their upgrade, what ones they felt like their end user community needed to do, and then we rolled that all into one and deployed that out to their end user community. On Pharmavite, it got a little bit more complicated here. So older release, 8.12 up to 9.2, the addition of a new application. So if you're thinking of my continuum, they were higher up on that chart of their needs, being fulfillment. So a very, very big change to many processes across distribution, warehousing, sales, etc. So they had to touch a lot of users, whereas in 9.2 upgrade, sometimes we just can get away with navigation depending on what's going on that continuum. But in their case, they were really far up that curve. They added fulfillment, they added new New applications, new hardware, all right? They brought in Hyperion and a new quality application kind of separate from our JD Edwards processes. So there was a very, very high learning need around new features and new applications. So a couple of things we did with them. They used the E1 Academy Act for an even broader audience than we saw in JF Shea, and that was they used it for both the core team as well as the subject matter experts. So they wanted the SMEs from each of the business, which one line of business are the gummies. They're on the right-hand side. I'm a big fan of that vitamin C here in flu season. They taste, they're tangerine. But they wanted the folks in these different lines of business, gummies, you know, the traditional vitamins, etc., to all have the same foundational training around what fulfillment could do for them. And so they used the E1 Academy to get that baseline. And then we used UPK and some video documentation to roll that out to the later end user community. Last one here, probably your biggest curve, right, coming from World into E1. So this is Turner Industries. Turner also decided, in addition to making the move from World to E1, to add UPK to their learning curriculum, as well as they dropped hundreds of customizations because E1 had the functionality there. So navigation certainly being a very, very big thing for them, as they had a GUI interface on top of World, but they just had a lot of navigational changes that they were hitting people with as they came into 9.2. So we spent a lot of time on fundamentals with the end users. We also spent considerable time with certain divisions who had high thresholds in the chart there, high thresholds of change, both the 9.2 change as well as the new applications and dropped customizations pieces. So they were far along that line. What made them a little bit different is their holistic approach to UPK. So they did decide to bring in an e-learning tool at the same time. So much of theirs was documentation and video based out of their tool. The Academy in and of itself became both a core team, a power user, and their technical team's resource. So their technical team, who had long supported World, needed to transform their skills into, you know, being able to support, at least in, you know, even off of day one, while their consultants were still there, they needed to be able to support the business. So their technical folks were able to use that to move into the E1 world off of World. All right, so now it is time, Doug, unless you have any other questions, for us to launch a quick poll.
All right, I will see if I can get that up there. There we go. So we'll leave that one up there for a minute for all of you folks. Hopefully you can give us a little bit of feedback. When was your last upgrade? Last 2 years, 2 to 5, or more than 5 years ago? I'm going to go ahead and close that one. And let's see if we share that. Well, how about that? We've got a lot of people on board that have not done an upgrade in a while. So great relative information that you're sharing. Okay, so let's see. I have control, right, Smith? We'll move on from
You
there.
too.
We'll hide that. Thank you. A little bit of a delay on my side. I apologize for that. Oh, so the next poll question, we can go ahead and put that one up there. What type of upgrade was it? So we'll let everybody vote on that as well. So technical upgrade, and Elizabeth, you talked about this a little bit. I have a slide coming up to go into the different types of upgrades, but technical only, let's keep everything the way it is, just get to the new version. The technical plus some business apps, we call that the like-for-like plus, where you're bringing in maybe a little bit of new functionality. And then the full-on upgrade where maybe business process engineering, and you're taking advantage of the time and the energy that's going to be spent to really revamp how you're using your ERP. I'll go ahead and close that one. And technical only. So we have a lot of synergy with everyone that's on the call with us. Great. All right, well, thanks for doing that, everybody. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is tied into what Elizabeth was talking about and what the Academy can help you with. Looking at some key points and how you can make sure that your path is going to lead to success. The first thing that we like to talk about with people is having a roadmap for your ERP. And this is, again, we're dealing all with JD Edwards here, but it's really true across any application that you're looking at, SAP, Dynamics, whatever it might be. If you've got the roadmap, that means you can get to where you want to go. If there's no roadmap, you don't really know where you're heading. It makes it hard to get there. And not just for your ERP from a technical sense, but the number of times that we talk to people in maybe IT that don't know that there's a merger or an international expansion or some big thing happening on the business side, where if they were involved in those conversations or could plan for that as part of the upgrade, it would have made things a whole lot smoother while you're moving ahead. So another piece, reviewing the current status of your customizations, finding out that you've got your payroll process highly customized in the testing phase, or your CRP, probably not the best chance of success in your upgrade. So having that documented, having that known going in so that you can, one, estimate the time that it's going to take to deal with those, and also to find out if you can reduce that customization footprint with maybe new functionality. Or on the next point, looking at the new modules within JD Edwards that you may be able to turn on and be able to, again, reduce the number of customizations or even third-party products that you're using. And the last point, not just where the business is heading, but where's technology heading? We all know in the Oracle world that we hear cloud every third word, but not just with cloud, but RF technology. Lots of new technology is always coming along. We know that's going to continue to happen and probably quicken. But taking a look ahead and seeing how your company, how your business can take advantage of some of those things that are coming down the road. So Elizabeth, help me out just from a point. What is the title of this? As for some reason I am not able to see the top of the slide.
That makes life interesting. This is your 9.2.x, an interim step. So this is steps prior to the analysis, or the pre-upgrade analysis.
Perfect. Thank you. So pre-upgrade analysis. Before you jump into the deep end, maybe find out how deep it is or how well you can swim, for an analogy. But go in. There's lots of things that you can do up front that will really help the upgrade go smoother. What Elizabeth talked about with the Academy, a lot of people seem that they're taking advantage of looking at what the new features are and new capabilities. You don't know what you don't know. So if you can go in, have an opportunity to look at a 9.2 environment, see what you might be able to take advantage of, then you can build that into your upgrade plans. It's amazing the number of people that don't do that before they jump in. Those are usually the people that we get to work with midway to help get things back on track. But if you are doing it ahead of time, it's a great way to bring that back to the powers that be, the business case, building it. If you're putting together a formal benefit statement or maybe an executive committee that's going to approve the actual work to get done, great way to do that. It gives you that better picture. So up front, maybe you're working with a trusted partner. Of course, we hope that you all have one, and we hope that it's us. But finding a good partner to give you that maybe quick, week-long, even a couple of day engagement, low investment, but you can use that as your justification for the much larger spend that you're going to have to go into with the upgrade. And then a lot of people will take a pre-upgrade analysis and turn that into their RFP if that's what they need to do. Or maybe it's just their ERP roadmap for the next 2-5 years. Or basically just defining the actual scope for the upgrade. So We talked a little bit about the upgrade types. I'll go over this quickly. The like for like, the technical upgrade. It's, hey, we're not going to look at any type of business change. We're not going to put in new functionality. We're just going to lift and shift, put it over to the maybe new hardware, get onto the new upgrade or new version so we can put a new OS on a server or use the newest browser, whatever it might be. Option number 2, with adding on the low-hanging fruit. That's where we're going to take on maybe a few of those new pieces, like maybe we'll go to E1 pages or some minor additions to what you're doing today. And then the third option, business process reengineering. That's where you're going to look at everything that you're doing to determine, is there a better way? And the big thing, so here's 3 choices, but of course there's lots of areas in between each one of those where it might pertain to you. All right. E, you going to help me out again?
Yes, that is 29.2.x, upgrade options and considerations.
All right. So, as it notes there, the biggest risk factors, the things that we see are impacting if a project's going to be on time, on budget, all of those type of pieces to label it as a success. The first thing, if you don't have that senior management buy-in, it's a real tough obstacle to overcome. And the main thing is priority shift. People aren't dedicating the right time or the right resources from a particular department. Often you need to send that up the ladder to have it come down and say, hey, this upgrade, this project is your priority, and you do need to dedicate the right number of resources to it. So very important there. Incomplete preparation for testing. I know, Elizabeth, you've probably worked with a lot of people in helping to create those test scripts and how important that is. If the end users don't know what they need to test, they're not going to be able to tell if it's working or not. So spending the time up front to be able to put those together, very important. Of course, managing the scope. If you've done the work up front where you've had a well-defined scope for your project, that makes it a lot easier to manage it and to stick to it. Of course, we all know things change, but then having a process to manage that change for approving scope changes and realizing the impact of it, all part of that. I mentioned availability of staff, prioritization. Hey, it's pretty simple to know what people's vacation plans are going in. If you've got one of your key subject matter experts that's taking the month of August off in the middle of your upgrade, that may be an issue. And then wrong skills on the project. That's both hard and soft skills. You need people that know the product or the area that they're responsible for, but you also need someone that's going to be a positive force for the upgrade. The person that is the naysayer and everything's going to fail, maybe not the right type of person to have on a project. And then poorly documented as is. Again, that goes back to your test scripts and knowing what you want to test. But if you're not sure how you're using the system today, it's hard to get it set up for using it tomorrow. Elizabeth, anything to jump in?
No, that sounds great. Yes, it is very much that preparation piece, whether you call it learning, training, OCM or whatever, helping them be prepared to contribute to the project through a clearly identified role, and knowing, like you said, what to test and feeling comfortable executing on those test scripts, vitally important. And next up here you have how Team Kane can help.
Great, thank you, and good point. So we do offer a pre-upgrade assessment. We've done this for quite a few different companies, large and small. We usually do fixed fee, which including expenses, top to bottom. How we look at it is a very low risk opportunity for companies to come in and have some experts take a look at what they're doing and give that high level view of this is what an upgrade is going to take, this is what your scope should cover. It's depending on the size of the company, maybe how much of JD Edwards you're using, 1 to 2 days of on-site time. And then also that would depend on how many people, consultants would need to be a part of that with the right expertise to be able to get a good enough picture. But within a couple of weeks, typically we'll come back with an estimate on what you should be doing from a hardware perspective, software, both JDE and third-party products that you might be using or might be recommended. First pass on the project plan, overall costs or investment might be required, resource needs, which usually is the biggest eye-opener for people. In a couple of the row or sessions that I've been involved with, someone from the project management side will be saying, well, bill and accounts payable can dedicate 4 days a week because really that's going to be the top priority. But when we talk to the people in accounts payable, they say, really about 20% of our time we could dedicate to that project. So finding out the difference in opinions is really key or eye-opening for people. And then putting together that roadmap of, hey, this is what you think you could accomplish in phase 1 of your upgrade, and then there's phase 2, phase 3, etc. So I mentioned the third-party products. We do, I mentioned earlier, partner with a few different people with their products that we think make a big difference. Purchase archiving, mentioned Batman, ScanMan from Forza. And if it makes sense, we can also include products like that in a roadmap for you. All right, so back to our Valentine's Day theme. Maybe we should have had a President's Day theme since we are a little bit later with our webinar. But regardless, we're still offering 25% off on a Team Kane roadmap or upgrade workshop. So if anybody is interested in that, please reach out to us. So Elizabeth, we are both going to be in Las Vegas.
We are.
Maybe winning it big. Between the two of us, we have quite a few sessions going on, but we would love to see you in Vegas. Come by, say hi. Lisa might even take you out for after session beverage. Is that true, Lisa?
Absolutely. I'll be having my 5th annual How to Play Blackjack training session as well. That was fun with Hamilton last year.
Very nice. I'm sure people are already looking forward to it. So, got a couple of minutes. If anybody had any final questions, go ahead and get those in there. But we've got Lisa's contact information up there as well as my own. If you have questions for Elizabeth, absolutely, you can reach out to either of us and we can get those over to her. But Elizabeth, I want to say thank you very much. Great presentation as always. And thank you for those people that joined us today. We know taking an hour out of your day is not always the easiest thing to do. And we remind you to go ahead and fill out that survey as you go out, if you could, and then we will pick a winner for a gift card.
Thank you, Doug.
Anything
and
else
thank you for
to tie us up? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just my own thank you. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen today, and thank you for hosting us, Team Kane. We appreciate it.